be here, and it's really, really encouraging that the reinsurance industry is well planned, well organized, well set. Because if you go a little down lower than that, you see chaos. And I know what you mean. If you go to the insurance industry, I don't know whether they even have such a forum. Maybe they have, I don't know. But it's a great learning that we see a commitment of industry champions really looking at how then they can change the industry. Now, I work for FSD Africa. FSD Africa is a specialist development agency that is headquartered here in Nairobi, but works across the continent, funded by the UK government. So in terms of UK government deploying its resources and grants across the continent, they do it through the organization that I do support. So I'm a principal there. My work is really to create risk transfer mechanisms across the continent, really driving change and building the future of the continent. We are going to talk about an interesting topic today, and most of the time, all of us talk about ESG and what is this? Somebody told me, like, Elias, you kind of mutate so quickly. The other day you were talking about innovation, then right now you're talking about ESG, and maybe you'll hear me talking about AI. The issue is that the world is that dynamic. And that basically means that we really need to be on our toes as a sector, really to kind of provide relevance to the industry, because if we keep on using the traditional mechanism systems, then we will not be able to really advocate and build the change that this particular continent requires and desires. And maybe what also you've observed, the world is becoming more riskier in terms of the calamities. Economic degradation is something that we cannot overly emphasize, but also the reality of Trump is real within the world. So these are some of the things that will hugely impact even our business. And if you maybe saw that the tweet that Trump mentioned, and he called the other president suckers of he called them all you suckers. You saw that? The Brits, he called them. He told them, like, if you think about the dollarizing your economies, then wait for 100% tariffs. That basically tells you that in the next frontier, we might see a lot of challenges within the industry, and that's why you'll be able to see that as a sector, then you guys face a lot of issues around foreign exchange risk, because that is something that you have to play and plug with. Now, today I want to talk about ESG, but before I do that, there are three things that I want to mention. The three Ds. So there's digitization, decarbonization, and decentralization. Those are the facets of ESG. When we talk about ESG, we talk about environmental, social, and governance. And this did not start the other day. It basically started around 1980s when the UN and other bodies thought about sustainable finance, and that is something that we've seen evolution over time. So if you talk about E, S, and G, there are three things that also come into place: people, planet, and the prosperity. Now, people are basically the basic facet of those people that want to provide protection and resilience on. Now, and these people are influenced by the planet, which has a very strong relation with the people that you guys are looking at their businesses they're trying to do. Then within that, then we talk about the prosperity of your organization. So we live in a world that has people that you need to provide protection on. These people are impacted within the planet that they live in, and you as a business, you need to prosper within your facets. And that's why ESG becomes really, really relevant and important. Let me start with digitization, because I'll kind of break it down in that particular order. Digitization has become a core aspect, and that's why the other day, one of the ministers told you that all you Kenyans you do is to complain on social media, right? Because we cannot live without social media. It is become part and parcel of who we are and what we do. And that has a lot of influences. And it will not only influence politics, it will influence businesses, it will influence even how we interact with their customers. Because a customer can easily go through a social media platform and basically bring down your organization within seconds, because it depends on how that particular message will kind of become viral. So digitization is key. And when you talk about digitization in that particular facet, then as a sector, there are three elements that will hugely impact our business. One, digital insurance. Two, embedded insurance. Three, generative insurance. Now, we've seen the impact of digital insurance, and everyone is saying that nowadays, customers can buy policies online. Everyone talks about that. Until the claims happens is when they remember that not online is online. Please go and bring your ID. And with Gen Zs, they don't even have IDs. Yeah. Unless it's after, most of the time they keep it behind their phones, something like that. That's where, and I know if you are a Gen Z, if you show me your phone, there's like an ID behind it or something like that. So digital insurance has become mainstream, and it has not really influenced the insurance sector whatsoever, because still it has not really touched what we call the customer centricity aspect. It has not really touched the heart of the customers, because there's that disconnect between how business is conducted and what customers feel. Then fast forward, we've seen a lot of embedded insurance, and this is where the threats will start coming in, whereby the organizations that are going to offer insurance will not be insurance companies anymore. Insurance will be embedded in other products. So you'll be able to get that automobile companies that are basically producing vehicles will kind of go ahead and tell their customers that instead of you going to an insurance company, why can't we provide this as a package? So embedded insurance will kind of now even shift the way traditional reinsurers have to think about the business. Because here, you're not going to go to the ground and verify that risk. That risk will be kind of absorbed at the embedded level. So think about Tesla saying that, we are producing vehicles and these are driverless vehicles, and we are going to purchase an insurance cover that will cover every driver that is going to drive the driverless cars. And they kind of send it at that particular level. Because the risk here will be a malfunction of all those vehicles, and those vehicles lose track and they hit it up, or they decide the technology doesn't work. You guys are basically ensuring what we call the damage component. But now it will shift from the damage component to the technology component, which basically they need to quantify what is the probability of this algorithm kind of losing its mind, or somebody hacking that algorithm. Kind of the future of embedded insurance will kind of really, really change the way we think. And that's why we really need to think about as reinsurers to see what that will really mean to us. Then fast forward is what we call generative insurance. Now, when I talk about generative insurance, it's basically insurance built on AI, whereby a customer will decide to use AI to determine the risk that he has. We'll go to an AI component and purchase that insurance and basically talk to it. Like, in the morning, I walk through Githurai, and he knows very, very good that Githurai, how many people have been? How many guys have been? Yeah. Or Dandora, like how many guys have been? So like AI will be able to know, because you see, someone will say, okay, fine, how will AI know that? You are going to go to your social media. There's what we call sentimental analysis. Everyone complains. Like if somebody's phone has been stolen along Hurlingham, someone will go to the social media and say, somebody stole my phone along Hurlingham, or something like that. And that data will be built on a database whereby AI will be able to collect all that data and know that if somebody will be passing with his phone along that area, there's a probability of that phone being stolen. So sentimental analysis becomes a very critical component. So generative insurance will be a big game changer in terms of how insurance industry will kind of be perceived in the near future. So what I would want you to do, go in, check on the impact of digital insurance on your sector, check on the impact of embedded insurance on your sector, and check on the impact of generative AI, particularly generative insurance on your sector. Because currently, we are going to have a completely digitized insurance whereby there'll be no asset, there'll be no people will just be insuring, and you don't know where this money is going. It will all about a totally digitized ecosystem. Now I close the deeper. Let me go to the decarbonization part. Now, if you look at from it, from an industrial, from an environmental side, we've seen a lot of issues around the global warming. And if you look at the Paris Agreement under the nationally determined contribution there, we are not really getting the target of what we needed to be. We needed the world to be at around 1.5% increase in temperatures. If you look at where we are right now, we are past that. What does that mean? It means that climate change becomes a major issue. And there's a very interesting statistics that was done around the UK, and companies are not reinsuring, or basically companies are not providing insurance to bungalows and in parts of UK because those houses are at risk of flooding. So it's either the insurance companies go around and build decks around those houses, or you'll be paying claims every time. So this is a real risk whereby it's going to materialize. And the funny thing is that no one has control of it. It's people have polluted the environment. If you talk to Trump, and the biggest risk of climate change right now, the top risk now is Trump getting back because Trump doesn't believe on climate change. And maybe some of you might not believe on climate change. But if you look at the patterns of the weather, because over the last couple of months, have we experienced weather that we ought to experience in Nairobi? No. Like in November, it's raining. Like the other day, houses were flooding. And the Nairobi governor told us we needed to buy boats. And somebody was asking, why are we buying boats in Nairobi? Eric Omondi had a boat and he rescued people. So he was a bit sharper because at least he was able to pull people out of flooding. So maybe as a reinsurance company, you might need to, instead of buying an ambulance or buying a vehicle, you need to start purchasing boats because you might show your CSR from saving people from flooding. Now, climate change has amplified and kind of will increase the risks that we face. And the question is, will we be able to reinsure those risks? Will we be able to make sure that our balance sheets remain afloat? And that basically means that we really need to think about how then do we change and influence these particular issues. So decarbonization becomes a major item whereby in terms of really our carbon emissions have to be lowered. We really need to think about other forms of risks because climate risk will be one. The second thing that also we are going to see a lot of emerging risks. There are two risks that are going to come within your balance sheet. One of them will be what we call transition risks. And transition risk is basically the risk of regulation that will look at decarbonizing your books. So somebody will tell you that because you are emitting, you have to reduce your emissions or pay carbon tax. So some of the key elements that we are going to see changing, and this will impact the clients that you are going to insure. So transition risks will be there. And the last thing will be liability risks. People will start basically taking guys to court because you promised a particular thing, but this thing has not transpired and there's pollution. Some other guys will get a lot of what we call penalties because of these types of risks. So these new emerging risks will have a very big impact within our balance sheets. So that is on the decarbonization part. But looking at it from the positive side, because it's not all gloom and doom for decarbonization. The continent is well abreast with a number of opportunities that we can tap as a sector. Now, Africa stands as a continent that has a lot of renewable energy, and that basically means that the insurance industry can play a critical role in transforming the energy sector within Africa. How do we do that? It means that we really need to redeploy our assets. We need to start providing reinsurance for new renewable technologies, things such as solar, which is critical within the African infrastructure. And ideally, what comes in is what we call product innovation. So do you guys have teams that are already thinking about the future, or basically are you only reinsuring the traditional products? Because the transitioning to new technologies, all these technologies will require insurance. And we have to be at that particular level whereby we can be able to determine the risk, we can be able to price these particular components, we are building our data sets for the essence of ensuring that we prepare ourselves to these new types of products. The other thing that I needed to mention is that, as we are really building these particular products, Africa is exposed to three major issues: one, drought, floods, and heat. Heat insurance will be critical in the next frontier because the world is getting warmer and everybody will try to run away from it. So maybe we really need to think about cooling. So the institutions that are going to look at cooling as a major component will be at the forefront of tackling the heat risk. So have you thought about heat insurance and heat reinsurance as a critical component? We only think about heat in India, whereby and part of Europe when there's these heat waves and people are collapsing everywhere. That thing will be happening in Africa, even here in Kenya. And I've seen nowadays you get people have some small fans, especially ladies. I don't know, like you put it on, like you run, it will not be a fancy thing. It will be real, where heat will be a major issue, and we really need to think about heat insurance.